If you haven't seen my previous videos talking about my opinions on immigration and stuff of that nature, I recommend you go and check those out. But to get you up to date, Donald Trump has designated the cartels in Mexico as terrorist organizations, as they should be. And with that, hopefully we will see military action against them. At least that is my opinion. But let's see this video from Pete Hegseth, who is now the head of the Department of Defense, and he is kind of in control of whether or not that happens. Ultimately, Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief, so any military action would be at his behest, but the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, could recommend certain actions be taken. As of right now, they're talking about specialized strike groups being sent in, possibly drone strikes or other things of that nature. As far as I'm concerned, I'll get into my opinion more later in the video, but I'm all for it. I'm all for all military action, but I'll get into that more as we go into this video. So with that, please like, share the video, and make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of this year, so please help me hit my goal. But let's go ahead and jump into the video. I don't want to waste your time anymore. So we have this from the Daily Mail, and Trump is discussing military strikes against Mexican drug cartels, Pete Hegseth is suggesting. So I'll go ahead and play the clip from Pete Hegseth that is going around. Some people have been cutting the clip off at 58 seconds.
Pete, we know that excuse me, Mr. Secretary, we know that the drug cartels have been declared terrorist organizations. And if you find that, and we know if there's Al-Qaeda, we're going to hit them. I don't care if you're in Somalia, Sudan, or in Syria. If we find that they continue to fire at our border control and they continue to put fentanyl into our country, as the Secretary of Defense, are you permitted now to go after them in Mexico or wherever they are?
Brian, I don't want to get ahead of the president, and I won't. That's ultimately going to be his decision. But let me be clear, all options will be on the table. If we're dealing with what are designated to be foreign terrorist organizations who are specifically targeting Americans on our border, and we're finally securing our border. We've been securing other people's border for a very long time. The military is shifting toward an understanding of homeland defense on our sovereign territorial border. That is something we will do and do robustly. So we're already doing it. Should there be other options necessary to prevent the cartels from continuing to pour people, gangs, and drugs and violence into our country, we will take that on. So the president will make that call. I'll work with him in that decision-making process. Ultimately, we will hold nothing back to secure the American people.
So I have long held the opinion that the cartels at our southern border are the single greatest threat to America. And why do I say that? Well, first of all, they are corrupting our neighbor. They're corrupting Mexico. The Mexican government, we don't quite know the extent in which they have control of the government, but we do know that they control certain aspects of the government. They control entire towns in Mexico. In fact, there was a report in 2023 that showed that the Mexican cartels are the 5th largest employer in Mexico. So they have immense power in Mexico, and what they do with that power is grotesque. I mean, the things they do to people over there, the things that they bring over our border. We are one of the largest, purchasers of human trafficking on the world stage, and the people that facilitate that are the Mexican drug cartels. So if you want to stop human trafficking in the United States, one of the biggest ways to do that is hitting the cartels. And that's putting aside all the guns that they bring into the country illegally, all the drugs they bring into the country illegally. Just the human trafficking aspect is enough for me to be like, all right, start drone striking, because it is absolutely disgusting what they're doing to our neighbor. Mexico is we're massive trade partners. We get a lot of stuff through Mexico. We don't need to be getting all this stuff from the cartels anymore. So I'm in full agreement. You know, stop all these foreign wars. Stop defending other countries' borders. Start defending our border. And if the military-industrial complex wants a war, then we can give it to them. We can give it to them in the form of going after the cartels, because those are the actual threats to our nation. Russia is not a threat. Russia's not going to attack us. Ukraine is not stopping them from attacking us. The only other threat maybe would be China, because they're building a military to go against us. Excuse me. But no, if you want to talk about real threats to the United States, talk about the terrorist organization that is on our southern border. They have immense wealth and access to all kinds of different weaponry. They are a massive threat. So they need to be dealt with sooner rather than later. We do not need them to gain more power and more control than they already have. I mean, the Mexican military can't even handle going against them right now. So if they're stronger than the Mexican military, that's something we need to be concerned about. So I think this is a great move by Donald Trump, and hopefully we see military action against them sooner rather than later. Let me go into this article from the Daily Mail, and I'll give my thoughts and opinions on it. And so Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are open to using military force like airstrikes and special forces against the drug cartels in Mexico. Trump has long took issue with the criminal rings, and he has vowed during his campaign to wage war on the cartels. Just on Monday, some suspected cartel members brazenly opened fire on U.S. Border Patrol, who were monitoring a drug and human trafficking smuggling hot zone at the Texas-Mexico border. The agents returned fire into Mexico, though no one was injured. So that happened earlier this week. There were no casualties or injuries reported from the exchange, but there was bullets flying from both sides. So definitely a scary situation, and I feel like it's only going to escalate more as we cut off the cartel's ability to cross the border. For the role producing deadly drugs bound for the U.S., like fentanyl, the president has said he would take the fight to the cartels to halt the drugs flowing into America. Speaking with his former Fox News colleagues Friday morning, Hegseth revealed that Trump is instructing him to make available any resources needed to go after the cartels. So this is just going over what we saw in that video at the start. So let me go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. Hegseth's broad response could be understood to mean any array of U.S. military might, including strikes from land, sea, or air, could be on the table to go after the cartels. I'm all for just full-scale war. Just invade Mexico, clean them out, and restore democracy, as America's known for doing. Now, typically, I am not for war or foreign intervention, but when we have something this close to home that directly affects United States citizens, yeah, I'm all for it. I've always been for defending the United States. I am not for defending foreign countries and foreign allies and stuff like that. I could not care less about what's going on abroad. I care about everything that's going on here in America with my fellow Americans. And as far as the cartels go, they directly affect my fellow Americans. So I am in full support of a full-scale war against the cartels, me personally. Now, I know a lot of people disagree there. Leave your disagreements down in the comments. I am more than happy to discuss any concerns you have or any disagreements. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to wipe the cartels off the map. Hegseth also noted that the U.S. military is shifting its posture to better defend the country at home, including from threats emanating from Mexico. The military is shifting toward an understanding of homeland defense on our sovereign territorial border. This is something we will do and do robustly. Should there be any other options necessary to prevent the cartels from continuing to pour people, gangs, and drugs and violence into our country, we'll take that on. So the president will make that call. Since 2019, the number of Americans who have died annually from fentanyl has nearly tripled, rising from 31,000 overdose deaths to 87,000 in 2023, according to federal data. The synthetic opioid, which is typically produced in Mexico using ingredients from China, is responsible for roughly 80% of overdose deaths nationwide. I know a lot of people, I'm sure you get the ads on YouTube all the time about fentanyl and stuff like that. It literally does not take much. It takes like a fraction of a penny's weight to actually overdose you. It's like less than 2 milligrams or something like that. It's incredibly tiny. It's like a pinch of salt will kill you. And China sends the ingredients over to the Mexican drug cartels, and then they manufacture it, and then they send it over the border because apparently it gives you a really good high, which Great, good for you. I'm glad you found a great high. But it's absolutely disgusting that it's also highly addictive. So that's how the cartels are making their money. They can't make money off weed anymore because we're legalizing it all over the place. So they're like, oh, let's find something else. And China's giving it to them because China's more than happy to be poisoning our citizens. It's just another way for them to secretly wage war on us. But the synthetic opioid, so it makes up 80% of overdose deaths nationwide. The substance is so deadly that fentanyl poisoning was the leading cause of death for Americans 18 to 45. So leading cause of death, 18 to 45 in 2022, right? Which is now 3 years ago. But keep that in mind. It still is a huge, massive problem, and that is something that needs to be dealt with. These cartels, they have no care for our well-being. They're all about making money. That's why they do human trafficking, drugs, weapons, everything. That's why they're taking over the government in Mexico. They would love to take over the governments here in the United States as well. Here in California, we've been having problems with gangs and cartels. There hasn't been much updates to that. I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe I'll make a video on it. But no, it's definitely something that directly affects Americans. I mean, we see all the time fentanyl getting put into other drugs that people take. They don't even mean to take the fentanyl, and then they end up overdosing. So it's incredibly sad what's happening to people. They're just trying to go out and have a good time, and they end up getting overdosed off something that they didn't expect to be in the things they were taking, which is why you need to be extremely careful. Do not take things if you don't know where they came from, okay? You go out to party or whatever, I'm libertarian in that aspect. You want to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting someone else, go for it. But please be careful. Please be aware of what you're taking, where you're getting it from, because that's how things like this happen. So they said here, I will deploy all necessary military assets, including the U.S. Navy, to impose the full naval embargo on the cartels Trump pledged in 2023. We will guarantee that the waters of the Western Hemisphere are not used to traffic illicit drugs into our country. Yeah, I'm all for securing our borders. Give the military something to do. Stop spending money overseas. Spend it on our border and the defense of our border. I'm all for it. Furthermore, I'll order the Department of Defense to make an appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. The Republican also classified the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, a federal designation that could lead to real consequences for the criminal groups. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt mentioned Friday that a 25% tariff will be levied on Mexico and Canada on February 1st. A 10% tariff will also be imposed on China on the same day. So the tariffs are going to go in effect today. So we'll see what comes of that. But this is basically in retaliation to Mexico not securing their own border, allowing the cartels to run rampant, and allowing people from other nations to cross through their country into our country, which I brought this up in my video talking about Chris Hansen and Dr. Phil. And what's it called? Yeah. It's basically, it's not just Mexicans. It's nowhere near just Mexicans that are crossing over. We have people from all over the world trying to get in and get their free share of stuff, whether it's from California or New York or wherever they can get it from. And they do need to be sent back to Mexico, but they are not all Mexicans. And Mexico has their own problems to deal with, whether it's the cartels or whatever else they got going on over there. I'm not in Mexico. I don't keep up with their politics. I just know they have a cartel problem. But another problem they need to handle, or we will make them handle, is the fact that they just let people flow through their country directly into ours. So that's something else they need to get a handle on. And the Canadian tariffs as well, they also allow stuff to come through their border, but it's not as big of an issue. I'm pretty sure the tariffs, there's other things to do with that tariff, but the tariffs on China make sense as well because China's sending the materials to the cartels, so they need to be punished in some way as well. But Liviette said the financial moves against the countries were in part due to their lack. I have no idea. I'm not even going to try to say that. Crackdowns on illegal drugs and immigrants streaming into the United States. And then let's go down here. Tomorrow, the president will be implementing a 25% tariff on Mexico. Well, that's today. The number of Americans who have perished due to fentanyl, however, ranges in the hundreds of thousands, not tens of millions. I'm pretty sure they're talking about a statement from Lievit, yeah, they said tens of millions, but it's in the hundreds of thousands. It'll be in the millions soon. So, still a massive issue. Whether it's tens of millions or tens of thousands, I think it needs to be dealt with either way. It doesn't make me change my feelings on it. And Monday's firefight between the criminals and the Border Patrol's agents have become a more frequent occurrence along the border. The gunfight broke out in Fronton. I got mixed up there. Texas, near the Guadalupe Guerrera. Exactly 1 week after President Donald Trump returned to office. Footage shows a small group of rifle-bearing cartel members crossing from Mexico onto an island in the Rio Grande River. No U.S. officials were injured in the firefight, which saw Border Patrol return fire into Mexico. So that's about it for this article. It just basically breaks down that we are considering military action. As far as I'm concerned, I'm all for it. I'm all for military action. I'm all for going against the cartels in whatever ways we need to. But let me know what you think down in the comments. What should we be doing with the border? What should we be doing with the cartels? Because no matter how you cut it, we have a border problem and we have a cartel problem. And you can't fix one without the other. We fix the border, but we don't fix what's going on with the cartels. The cartels will just still find a way in. If we fix the cartels, but we don't fix the border, we're still going to have things pouring in that we shouldn't. So they're an issue that needs to be fixed together. And like I said, like I've been saying, the cartels need to be wiped off the map. Just look at what they've done over the years. Look at what they've become. Look at the trajectory that they're on. If we aren't careful and we don't start handling them, they will own Mexico. And then if they get that much power, we could have a foreign military that wants to see us drugged out of our minds and accepting human trafficking right on the other side of our border. Or do we want that as a neighbor? Do we want a cartel-run government as our neighbor? I don't think we do, and I don't think I don't. I don't think you do either. So I think this is a fight worth fighting, and I hope to see it soon. I obviously, like many of you watching, don't want war, but sometimes war is necessary. And when it comes to these cartels, they're not going to just stop. They make way too much money doing what they're doing. We can do what we can domestically, but it's clearly not been enough, and we need to start going after them directly where they are, where they live, where they operate. But, let me know what you think down in the comments. That's my opinion on it, and thank you for tuning in. This has been Tyler Today News. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thank you. Peace out.